Very good. I guess we'll start now. So welcome everybody. Now 3:15. We'll start our committee of adjustment meeting for January. Start off, we've got a roll call done, obviously, and we're just waiting on Lisa. She'll be along shortly. So first order of business is determine if any members have any disclosures of interest when considering any of the applications that we'll be dealing with today. Are there any? Rudy and Linda? All good? No. Okay, good. Have all the members received the minutes of the previous meeting? Are there any errors and omissions?
No.
If not, can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes from the December meeting?
Rudy moves approval.
Okay, Rudy, thank you.
I'll second.
And a second. And all those in favor, Rudy, yes.
Yes.
Linda, yes. And
Yes.
myself. There you go. So first up, we'll have file number. So we have a number of files on hand first. Sort of, and then we'll kind of split them up a little after. So file number, we're going to start off with file number BNPL 2022238 and 329, ANPL 2022329, BNPL 2022330, and 2022331 ANPL, and ANPL 2022332. Is that it? Okay. Anna, go ahead and give the report, please.
Thank you. So through the chair to hopefully add some clarity. So BNPL 328 and ANPL 329 concern Lot A, whereas BNPL 330 and ANPL 331 concern Lot B. And the final application, ANPL 2022-332, concerns a minor variance for the retained lot, which contains a single detached dwelling. So
that's known as Lot C.
Lot C, okay. That's correct. Thank you. And just as a note for attendees today, my colleague Katie and Sarah is unable to attend, so I'll be presenting on his behalf for items on the agenda 5.1 through 5.8. The rest are mine. So I'll do the best of my abilities, but your patience is appreciated if I don't have the answers handy. So regarding Lot A, an application has been received to sever a parcel having a frontage of approximately 57 meters, a width of 57 meters, a depth of 30 meters, and an area of 2,006 square meters, and retain the parcel having an area of 4,013 square meters. As a creation of a lot within the urban area of Portland. The corresponding minor variance recognizes that minimum lot area being reduced from a minimum required of 4,000 square meters to an area of about 2,006 square meters. So the subject lands are located in the urban area of Portland. The proposed retained parcel consists of a single attached dwelling, and the proposed two parcels of lands to be severed are currently vacant. The lands are designated urban residential and zoned hamlet residential with a small portion of significant woodlands on Lot A. As per Norfolk County official plan policies regarding lots of a smaller size on private services, a hydrogeological survey or study was submitted with the application. Regarding the significant woodlands, condition number 2 was added to reflect official plan requirements through discussion with the agent that has since been amended, and the amended conditions have been provided to members of committee, the agent, and the property owner to add some flexibility. Staff received a comment from members of the public in a letter asking for clarification regarding drainage, noting issues with drainage and noting of costs to be borne to neighbors. It notes the size of the deficiency and has some questions on the proposed use, built form, and parking. And lastly, it discusses if any unforeseen costs would be borne by the Again, my understanding at this time is limited to planning policy and process, but I did speak with Chris Dunn, the superintendent of environmental infrastructure services for drainage. The conditions of the consent might require costs be borne upon the proponent, but I don't believe at this time they would extend to the neighbors. Chris noted a lot of work has been ongoing in this area to fix some issues with drainage. The lands are currently quite wet, and recommended that residents contact him directly for further guidance and clarification on any drainage requirements. And I'm happy to provide information. Similarly, for the third question of the resident, unforeseen cost is a really broad question that may exist outside the scope of this application and the planning process. But as Mr. Dunn noted, any additional requirements needed for this specific application will be at the cost of the applicant. And there should be no real cost to the remainder of the watershed unless routine maintenance is required. And again, any further questions or clarification, please direct to him directly. Regarding the second question on the use, so the proposed use and provisions would need to be consistent with current as of right permissions in the RH zone. So the RH zone contains permissions for low density residential uses. Through a future permit, if it was determined the building footprint could not accommodate current zoning provisions, a minor variance would be required. At this time, I don't have the information, but the conditions of the applications will ensure that those intentions should be met. Regarding the smaller lot size, I think it's fair to say it's a smaller lot, but it represents a fair compromise to achieve provincial and municipal goals towards intensification of housing stock. Okay, other conditions that have been amended. So conditions 4 pertains specifically to Lot B. So this is BNPL 2022-330 and ANPL, it's just that one, sorry. Condition number 2 pertains specifically to Lot A. So BNPL 2022-228. And the 3 subconditions contained within condition 6. So a big shout out to Mary Elby, the agent, her client, and Chris Dunn, the superintendent of drainage, who worked together really quickly last minute to find some amended conditions that work for all parties that we have here today for the committee's consideration. I do believe condition number 8, which is a condition from development engineering. There was some suggested verbiage from Mr. Dunn and I believe Mary on working on how it could maybe be a bit more flexible, a bit more specific. Keeping in mind that this proposed condition on the amended condition list was not reviewed or confirmed by development engineering. So it's the committee's decision if they want to move this amended condition forward or if they want to maintain the intent of the original condition from development engineering. Up to them. With that said, staff of the opinion proposed severances are consistent with the provincial policy statement and conform to the official plan. We support all of the applications, and I believe we need to vote one at a time, subject to the attached conditions as proposed. So we begin with whichever you prefer, severance.
328.
328.
And we'll do the A lots first.
Sure.
You done?
Yes.
Okay. Usually you say we're ready for questions.
Sorry, I'm available for questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that being said, very good. The applicant and the agent are on hand. Does the committee have any questions of the planners? No. Rudy, nothing? Okay. Does the applicant or agent have anything to add?
I think things are okay that we have now in conditions. It was just a matter of wording that would prevent the lots to be sold and then built, rather than having everything solid right now.
Okay.
We did want to make sure that, yes, they are buildable lots, so that's how we work on these conditions.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
These
Revised ones,
revised conditions meet that intent, right?
yes,
Okay, and you're fine with that?
we're okay.
Okay, good. Is there anyone present or online that wishes to speak to this application? And if you are online, please unmute now. Going once? Okay. Anything else from the committee? Can I get a motion from the committee? And we'll start with ANPL, or BNPL 2022328. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Linda.
Rudy seconds.
So file number BNPL 2022328 in the name of Harvey and Lisa Getty, thank you. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot within the urban boundary that meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and that public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Linda
Yes.
and Rudy?
Yes.
Myself. And that is carried. So file number ANPL 2022329 in the name of Harvey and Lisa Getty. This application, in accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the request for relief is considered appropriate for proposed development, minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and the public input was received and has been considered as part of this application. All those, I think, a mover and a seconder, please.
Rudy moves approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Rudy,
Yes.
Lisa, or Linda,
Yes.
and myself, and that is carried. So file number BNPL 2022330 in the name of Harvey and Lisa Getty. A mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move approval.
Second
Rudy
by
seconds.
Thank you. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot within an urban boundary, meets the intent of the Norfolk County zoning bylaw, and that public input was received and has therefore been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Linda?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
That is carried and approved. And ANPL 2022331. Can I get a mover and a seconder?
I'll move
Rudy
approval.
moves.
And Rudy seconds.
Yep.
In accordance with the section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and that public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Rudy,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
myself, and that is carried. And finally, file number ANPL 2022332. Can I get a mover and a seconder?
Rudy moves approval.
And I'll second.
And in accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, and maintains the general intent that the official plan and the zoning bylaw and the public input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Linda,
Yes.
Rudy,
Yes.
myself, There we go. Okay. Very good. Next up, file number BNPL 2022303 in the name of Duke Farms, care of Erica Van Ness. And the planner can give the report, please.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, to begin, just for the committee's attention, the agent notified staff of a typo on the agenda, which I believe Sherry has addressed since this item. Just to clarify, this concerns 288 Glenmeyer Road. So if it's okay for the chair, I'll combine the two applications. Great.
Yeah.
So BNPL 2022-303, an application was received to cover a parcel having a frontage of approximately 113 meters, a width of about 1,113 meters, a depth of 90 meters, and an area of 0.76 hectares or 1.88 acres. And retain a parcel having an area of 50.32 hectares as a boundary adjustment. The lands will be added to the existing lot located immediately adjacent to the east, resulting in a final lot size of 1.29 hectares or 3.19 acres. An application has also been received, ANPL 2022-304, to recognize deficiencies created through severance application 2022-303. To find relief of 0.94 meters from the required front yard setback of 13 meters to permit a decreased front yard setback of 12.06 meters and 630 square meters from the maximum permitted usable floor area of 200 square meters for accessory structures for residential purposes to permit a usable floor area of 830 square meters. So the subject lands are located west at the intersection of Glenmeyer Road and Second Concession Road ENR. These lands were the subject of a surplus farm severance in the past. The lands to be severed are occupied by a barn and a hydro shed. The lands to be retained are occupied the lands to be retained are an agricultural parcel, and the lands to benefit are occupied by a single detached dwelling and a barn. My understanding is through a site visit by staff, an additional accessory structure was identified on the subject lands, not captured in the application, which would have the effect of potentially increasing the amount of relief required for usable floor area of accessory structures on site, which is noted on the zoning administrator's comment in the report. Condition number 2 has been added to reflect these comments. It is staff's understanding that the primary reason for boundary adjustment is due to the hydro sheds on the subject lands that will provide power to the adjacent lot. So the effect of the severance will be that the residential parcel will be expanded to include an agricultural structure or a barn and a hydro shed that provides power to all structures. The lands are designated and zoned agricultural and hazard lands. The Long-Term Region Conservation Authority has submitted a comment in attachment 2 indicating no concerns with the concept of the proposal. The provincial policy statement and official plan both contain policies which outline when consents may be considered, including technical reasons such as minor boundary adjustments, easements, or rights of way. As noted by the report, staff are of the opinion that access to the hydro shed can be accommodated instead through an easement or right of way, rather than consolidating agricultural buildings that were retained with the farm as part of a historic surplus severance to what is now a residential lot. So for this reason, primarily staff are recommending refusal for the severance. Regarding the minor variance, the report notes that the degree of relief required, which is over 600 square meters to accommodate the barn, does not meet the floor tests. Outside of the report, I myself would also note that this amount of relief may be incorrect due to that additional accessory structure on the lands to be severed. So if approved, it would mean that the amount of relief is incorrect and members of the public were notified incorrectly. So for those reasons, the minor variance is recommended for refusal. And that's all for me. If there are any questions.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Lisa. Um, Is there an agent or applicant present? Okay,
Mitchell Baker, Norfolk.
okay, thanks. Just a second, we'll get back to you. Does the committee have any questions for the planner?
No.
No, okay, Mitchell, go ahead if you have anything to add.
Through the chair, firstly, I'd just like to thank staff for preparing their recommendation report. We met with them earlier this month to try to refine the details of this proposal. And I've prepared a couple of slides to help clarify their concerns. So this is the proposal. That's the image on the left is the entire farming property with the small residential lot in the north. The right image shows the boundary adjustment in the right, or in the red dashed line. This includes that barn with the electrical shed that services all of the structures on the property. We're looking to put this all onto one property. Put this all onto one property for ownership. If you can go to the next slide. So this is just the property a little closer up. So in the yellow line, that's the existing property or existing residential lot. That was a result of a surplus farm dwelling severance prior to the current owners purchasing the property. And the red line proposes to add those lands to the existing residential lot, which includes the barn and that electrical shed. Those kilns and greenhouse that you see on the aerial photo have been demolished in an attempt to reduce that usable floor area that planning staff has mentioned. If you can go to the next slide.
So those, they're gone, but the foundations are still there, kind of thing?
They're gone, the aerial. But the aerial photos just.
Okay.
So these are the applications before you today. The consent application looks to add those lands, and an easement wouldn't be suitable for this, as it's less about access and maintenance to that electrical shed and more about ownership of that electrical shed and the buildings that it services. And the proposed red line follows the existing fence line. And inside of that is all manicured grass area and has no productive agricultural lands. With this application comes minor variance applications, one to reduce the front yard from 13 to 12.06 meters. Then to recognize the increase in usable floor area in accessory structures from a maximum of 200 square meters to approximately 830 square meters. Planning mentioned the another building that is on the property that is planned to be demolished as well, so that numerical value will remain the same. With the additional land being added to this property, we think that this second barn on the property is an efficient and reasonable use of this additional space. So that summarizes the application, and I hope that clarifies some of your concerns. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any from the committee?
So
Yeah, Mr.
I just have a
Chairman.
question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rudy.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just have a question in terms of this electrical shed. So does that electrical shed provide power to the proposed lot that's wanting to be added to the current existing lot? Or does it also provide power to the lot that was severed a number of years ago?
Through the chair, it's actually both lots. As you can see by the dashed line I tried to show on that image there, it provides power to the dwelling, the shop, and the barn.
Linda?
I just had a question with regards to the barn. Is it currently being used as part of the farm operation?
Through the chair, no, it's currently vacant.
Okay.
Lisa? Anything?
To clarify that electrical obviously provides what you need for every building that's there, but really isn't being used for anything beyond.
No.
In terms of funds.
Okay.
That's good. Thanks.
Okay, so I just, another question or point, I guess if the committee chooses to approve the application, a condition could be added that the additional structure that wasn't identified needs to be removed, just to ensure that the public was circulated properly. And that would, I think, deal with that issue by adding a condition. That's for planning staff, is that?
Yep, if they wanted to ensure that the proposal reflects, the subject matter reflects what is on the proposal, then either they would need to remove that building or amend the proposal. Yeah, that would be fine.
And the applicant? You're good with that?
Through the chair.
Okay, and that's, is that, what would we call that building?
That was going to be my question. What type of building is it?
Which building, which building is it that, you're,
It's like it's a old watershed. It's just this.
so we will call it Old Watershed?
Sure.
Okay, so, is that a condition you want to add, Linda?
Yes, I'm suggesting that we add that condition, and then I would move approval of the application with that condition added.
Okay, so I'll just make a note if everyone's good that the condition 13 will be the removal of old watershed in quotes. For lack of another.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Rudy.
yeah, before we go ahead with the motion, I'd just like to see, to hear a response from planning staff in terms of their comment is that they're of the opinion that access to the hydro shed can be accommodated by easement or right of way. But the agent claims that that would not be sufficient for their purposes. I would just like planning staff's opinion on that.
Okay.
Sure, so if I understand the report written correctly, the easement would be one solution that would relate to access. Sounds like the agent has suggested that instead ownership is preferred. So it's a reasonable counterpoint to that as a solution.
Okay.
Keeping in mind, I don't know if we necessarily received evidence that there is underlying hydro line, so we're assuming that that is true and correct. But beyond that, yeah, no other comment.
Okay. And
Through the chair, that's correct. It's more about ownership as the farmlands have now changed hands and been purchased by another farming company. Now those two properties are under different ownership. And in order to sort out the financials, the taxing, the billing, and all other legal matters related to business operations, having those under the same ownership would be beneficial.
is the electrical building identified in the conditions and all of that?
Pardon me?
The electrical building, is it identified in the conditions at all? Let's see.
It wasn't distinguished in the
No,
conditions.
so I'm just wondering whether there's a condition to, again, add or remove.
To add or remove the electrical building?
The easement.
Is there an, oh, I see, you're asking if there's a proposed condition that would request an easement be added on the conditions as well?
Or removed, what, see, you mentioned an easement. I know this is not a report, but
So,
an easement was one solution, but you're countering with ownership
right. So,
as being, so you don't really need the easement, is that what you're saying?
That would be correct. We haven't proposed an easement. That was a solution that planning staff offered.
So there's no, sorry to jump in, there's no condition or proposal that encompasses the
It was
easement.
just a suggestion?
Suggestion.
Okay,
Yes,
all
that's
right.
correct.
All right, well, then we'll just add condition 13 as to remove the old watershed. Like that? Sure. Okay.
Maybe clarifying
So just,
where it is on the parcel, what
Yeah.
plans to be severed or the location.
which,
Just that,
I got a map, which,
So it wouldn't be showing on the map because it wasn't included in the application.
Okay.
So, but it would be on the subject lands. So what's being added to the residential parcel is where the watershed is. I was wondering what it was. This is kind of like a bunker. It can't be a
so I'll
bunker.
just note that it's remove the old watershed on the subject land. Okay. Is there anyone present online or in person that wishes to speak to this application, either of these applications? Hearing none, is there anything else from the committee?
Yeah,
Oh.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Rudy.
it's Rudy again.
Yeah.
While I do appreciate there's some uniqueness to this application, I am somewhat concerned with the overall ending lot size being 3.19 acres. It appears the focus is on the electrical shed. And if that's the case, I don't know if there's another configuration that works that makes the lot size not so big, but it ends up being 3.19 acres if you include the whole parcel that's being requested. So it's getting kind of large.
Okay. Any comment from the planner, the applicant?
To the chair, that was the logical placement of the proposed lot line. There's an existing fence that follows that diagonal pattern to the frontage. Another option might be to go straight down to the west of the barn, straight to the road, if that was preferable by committee.
Rudy?
Well, again, I mean, maybe before I comment, I would like to hear planning staff's opinion on the lot size ending up 3.19 if we go ahead with this.
Well, maybe before, I would just like to ask, so there's a fence you say there.
Correct.
And how would a change in the lot line affect the agricultural part? It would. Fence is the fence and, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. So through the chair, this is my own personal interpretation. It's not within the report of my colleague. I would agree that to expand a residential lot to this degree, in my opinion, would not meet the intent of the provincial policy statement as it regards minor boundary adjustments for technical reasons and a range of official plan policies regarding broadly the conservation of agricultural areas and spaces from encroachment and residential uses. And further to that, I would agree with my colleague that an expansion, the degree of relief for a minor variance to incorporate the barn is over triple what is currently permitted. I don't believe it meets the 4 tests. So I would agree. And I don't think that would be a shock of committee members. I tend to be pretty restrictive regarding evaluations on boundary adjustments. So yeah, I think that opinion would be consistent with previous opinions I've had in the past.
Okay.
Yeah. Always open to, if the agent and applicant are open to a reduced lot size, maybe to incorporate just the hydro and leave the barn, that might be a solution that could be agreeable. Sorry, not there.
Okay, Lisa?
I do agree with Rudy that it's a little bit unnerving in terms of the size. But then if you look at the configuration, it'd be very difficult to trim off much anywhere to make any of that actually productive agricultural land, which is what it would have to become. So realistically, in my opinion, based on what's there, there's not a lot of use for what would be
If you change anything, if you shrink the boundary, the fence is still, it's gonna be a mental barrier and It's not going to add anything to the agricultural use. Rudy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate there is some uniqueness here involved in this proposition. I just try to highlight the fact that you are ending up with a lot of 3.19. When the lot severance was done, the excess dwelling, I guess they were happy at that time to get the size of lot that they got. And now, because ownership is changing, we're looking at reconfiguring. So, I mean, again, I can understand there's some uniqueness to the application, so I am somewhat sympathetic to that. I'm somewhat uncomfortable with the 3.19 lot size, but if that is deemed by committee to be the best solution, then I can go with that, but I'm somewhat uncomfortable.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
If I could just add to that, in speaking with the applicants, and we've reached out to Bonnyfield Farms, which is the owner of the property. Which the building, if it was a smaller land area to address the members' concerns, the barn would become derelict. That's the outcome.
Okay,
Because Bonnyfield would not use it.
okay.
Sorry, I missed the last part of what he said there.
Just a little louder and.
I'm sorry, I don't like to speak up unless I have to. We reached out.
The mic is up.
Oh, I'm sorry. We reached out to Bonnyfield Homes, Bonnyfield Farms, the owner of that property, and they said that they don't want any buildings on their land, which would be the barn, and they would find that to be a liability to them. And if they got it as part of their lot, and they were to reduce the lot size to not include the barn would become derelict and become a liability.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I guess one option would be to disconnect the hydro to the barn and reconfigure the lot, but like was just pointed out, the barn would become derelict. It's not being used as part of the farm. If it goes, I have a question for planning staff. So if we approve the severance and it ends up being, I guess, slightly over 3 acres, is there anything that would prevent the owners in the future of severing that and dividing it into 2 1.5 acre lots?
Thank you. Through the chair, my understanding is no. Through the current policies, the agricultural designation policies and provincial policy statement policies outline which types of consents to sever are possible in agricultural land. They would need to meet those opportunities, but through the current policies, they would be permitted to create a vacant parcel that is like 1.5 acres. That would not meet the intent.
That would not be permitted? Is that what you're saying?
Through policy, it would not be supported to create a vacant parcel.
Okay.
Building of a single detached dwelling, as with any other parcel in agricultural land.
So there'd be some protection there.
There's protection today for the retained lands and the severed lands, regardless of the boundary adjustment. That policy stands.
Okay.
It's applicable
Okay.
today and tomorrow.
And then just another question, is a 3 acre parcel large enough to have livestock?
Thank you. Through the chair, if you can permit me a moment to review the zoning bylaw requirements on minimum parcel size. Okay, so section 3.17 of the zoning bylaw specifies that a minimum lot area of 2 hectares be required. See my conversion. 4.9 acres, give or take, is what would be required as the minimum. They could theoretically request a minor variance, keeping in mind that any livestock facility would need to meet NBS requirements.
Right. Okay. I was just kind of in my head trying to determine whether 3 acres would be farmable or, are permitted for some type of specialty farming, but
Sure, that's a fair question. I think the only item I'll leave with committee to consider is by removing a barn on lands to be retained with what was left of the original agricultural parcel, recognizing that it isn't in use or proposed to be in use by the current owners, land use planning is intended to be a long-range approach. So they may not want the barn today, but future agricultural producers may want the barn in the future. So by incorporating an agricultural building into a residential lot today, we're reducing the ability of the lot to be used for that purpose. So I'll leave that with you for consideration. Thank you.
okay, thanks.
Any further comments from the agent or?
If I could just add to that, so the intent of this was to bring the electrical shed and all buildings that it services onto one property. So severing off the barn to be left with the agricultural lot wouldn't be sufficient for the purposes of this application.
Okay. Anything else from the committee? What are the committee's wishes?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Lisa moves to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Linda. So we'll start with file number BNPL 2022303 in the name of Duca Farms, care of Erica Van Ness. Pretty close. There we go. That's my biggest fear. This application is, so we have to change the wording here, is consistent with the provincial policy statement, does comply with the Norfolk County official plan, agricultural lot adjustment policies, and does meet the intent of the zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. And I'll just note again that condition number 13 is to remove the old watershed on the subject matter. So that being said, all those in favor, moved by Lisa, seconded by Linda. Lisa?
Yes.
Thank you. And Rudy?
Yes.
Thank you. And Linda?
Yes.
And myself, and that's carried. And file number ANPL 2022304, Duca Farms. Mover and a seconder, please. If that's the intent of the committee to.
I'll move.
Linda, move approval.
Yes.
Thank you. Seconded by Lisa. In accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, a request for relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, is minor in nature, and does maintain the general intent of the official plan of zoning bylaw, and no public input was received, and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All in favor, Lisa?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
And Linda?
Yes.
Myself? And that is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, next up. So next up, file number ANPL 2022336, Tegan Easter. And the planner can do the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct a new accessory residential dwelling unit, or ADU, providing relief of 15 meters from the required maximum setback of 30 meters, to permit a setback of 25 meters between the ADU and the primary dwelling, as identified by section 323BII of the zoning bylaw in Norfolk County. The subject plans are located east of Victoria and are occupied by a single detached dwelling. barns, a greenhouse, a workshop, and some kilns. They are predominantly designated and zoned agricultural, the portion designated and zoned hazard land. The LPRCA has noted in their comment included as attachment 1 that provided the proposed development is set back from the area subject to natural hazards, the application is consistent with section 3.1 of the PBS. Making some notes, it's a bit difficult to determine if that's true from the submitted drawings. But they have no objection to the concept of the application. They also explain where LREG 178/06 is delineated, which is about 50 meters from the top of bank. So provided the development is outside of that regulation area, no permit is required. No permit is required. The report written makes note of the recent change in the zoning bylaw regarding ADUs. So this is one of those files that was submitted during the old bylaw. And as such, the public notice summary is crafted to reflect that old bylaw. Today, that bylaw has since increased the required setback between an ADU and a single attached home from 30 meters to 40 meters. The placement of the ADU, planning staff find the application meets the 4 tests of minor variance and recommended for approval. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay. Is there an applicant or agent present? No? Okay. Does the committee have anything for the planner? Is there anyone present, either in person or online, that wishes to speak to this application?
I do. I was just wanting to know, like, are they trying to build a house there, or what are they trying to do there?
Yeah, good question. So it's an ADU. It's what we call an accessory residential dwelling unit. So it's a secondary dwelling unit that's secondary to the primary dwelling. So there's a dwelling today, a single detached dwelling, and they're building like a smaller structure that permits a dwelling unit inside of that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because like with that farm there, they've actually done a lot of severing of land when the snow's over everything. Like, I was just wondering what they were doing. Like, I noticed the sign right by all the time.
Sure. So I can't I can't comment on the history of the severances and their applicability to this particular application, but what I can say is through the official plan, ADUs are not permitted to be severed from the subject land, so it's there to stay. It's for whoever lives on that site.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's actually away from wetlands and.
Yeah.
It can't be separated off.
No, right, like he's not, like they're not building a house in the wetland, like there's a lot of wetlands and banks and all that.
Yeah.
Let's say where they have to have a permit from the LPRC.
Yeah. So to answer your question, the LPRCA provided a comment regarding that consideration. So they comment under section 3.1 of the PPS, as well as OREG 178/06. OREG deals with permits and 3.1 deals with wetlands and hazards. So for the PPS, the LPRC's comment said it wasn't too clear, but their understanding is it should be okay and made no objection to the concept of it as it pertains to hazards and wetlands. And provided they build the structure outside of that 15-meter setback in a particular space, they don't need to get a permit through OREG 178/06. So provided they don't build on wetlands, no problem with the LPRCA. If they do, then the LPRCA will have requirements for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just curious, but.
Okay, good. Yeah, we need your name for the record. That's the question.
Garrett Jackson. Garrett Jackson. Garrett Jackson.
Okay. You don't ask questions. You don't have to get put your name on the record.
Well, no.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's what we're here for. Anyone else present wishes to speak to this application or ask any questions? Okay. And there's, I'll just check again. There's no applicant agent on the line for this application.
It's here to be there.
Who is it?
It's here.
Tegan, are you, anything for you, Tegan?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Okay, anything to add?
Not really, just that this is nowhere near the road, so it obviously can't be severed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. What are the wishes of the committee?
Rudy moves approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so file number ANPL 2022336, the name of T. Gilmeister. In accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and that no public input, well, some public input is received, is the asked question. Was it input was received and therefore has been considered as part of this application? All those in favor, Rudy
Yes.
and Linda?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
And myself. And that is carried and approved.
Thank you.
So next up, we have file number ANPL 2022321 in the name of John and Peggy Adlington. And the planner can give the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to construct a 26 by 44 accessory building requiring relief of approximately 42 square meters, the maximum permitted usable floor area of 100 square meters, and 1.07 meters in the maximum height of 6 meters to permit a height of 7.07 meters. The subject lands are located in the hamlet of St. Williams, having an approximate area of 1,800 square meters. They are occupied by a single detached dwelling and accessory building. A site visit by staff determined a shipping container, or what we sometimes call a sea can, was located on site. That was not identified on the concept plan. We brought this to the property owner's attention, and it's our understanding that this should be removed. We did flag for the zoning bylaw department and building department. So the comments received by zoning and building department staff noted that a container greater than 15 square meters will require a building permit, and the zoning administrator noted if the sea can does remain on site at the time of permit, the usable floor area will need to be recalculated for the minor variance and provided some additional information for consideration of the property owner. The subject lands are designated hamlet and zoned residential hamlet. In reviewing the degree of relief in surrounding area, it's the opinion of staff that the proposed development meets the forecast and recommended to be approved. Thank you. Available for questions.
Is there an applicant or agent present or on the line?
Yes,
Sorry, can you speak up, please?
yes, I am on the line.
And so am I, the owner.
Okay. Anything from the committee to the planner? Does the applicant or agent have anything to add?
Only that we do intend to remove the sea can once the building is up. We moved from a property that had a 30 by 50 and a 20 by 44 shop, 2 shops. And my husband likes to restore his cars, and the container is currently holding all his car parts. By no means is it a business that he does, it's a hobby. Anyhow, so we do not intend to keep the container after the shop is up. We wouldn't have no need for it.
Okay, so that's between, I guess, you and the building department, and to figure out that it's not going to stay.
Yeah, so the comments will provide more specific direction.
That's right.
You can contact them independently. I think it should be something that will need to be sorted out in advance of the permit getting complete and applied for, just as a note, but
Yeah.
they'll talk about that then.
Okay. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this application, either in person or on the line? Anything further from the committee? And what are the committee's wishes?
I'll move approval.
Linda moves approval. At least a second. Lisa comes in second. Okay, so file number ANPL 2022321 in the name of John and Peggy Adlington, in accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the request for relief is considered appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, maintains the general intent of the official plan, and the zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Lisa?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
And Linda?
Yes.
And myself, and that is carried. And approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is file number AMPL 2022339 in the name of Harry Day. I can get the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application was received to construct a 6.7 meter by 6.9 meter accessory building requiring release of 1 meter from the required exterior side yard setback of 6 meters. The subject lands are located in the hamlet of Victoria, and they're occupied by a single detached dwelling. The subject lands are designated hamlet, zone of hamlet residential. The application will facilitate the development of a detached workshop, to the understanding that the side entry stairs of the household make it difficult to maneuver equipment from the proposed garage into the backyard. If the zoning provision is maintained, no key conditions have been identified by staff. In conclusion, I believe this meets the court test for minor variance and recommend it for approval and available for any questions.
Okay. Is there an agent or applicant present or on the line? No. Any from the committee? Is there anyone present or on the line that wishes to speak to this application? No. What are the wishes of the committee?
Rudy moves approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy.
I'll
Seconded
second.
by Linda. So file number ANPL 2022339 in the name of Harry Day, in accordance with section 45(1) of the Planning Act, the requested relief is appropriate for the proposed development, minor in nature, and maintains the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw, and that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Lisa?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
And myself, and that is carried.
Thank you.
So next up, we have file number BNPL 2022305 in the name of Mike Gior. Planner can give the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to set a parcel having approximately frontage and width of 54 meters, a depth of 49 meters, and an area of 0.69 acres. And retain a parcel having an area of 8.5 acres. It's a creation of a lot within the urban area of Portland. So the subject lands are located southwest of the intersection of Main Street of Portland, or Highway 3, and Highway Crescent. The lands to be severed are occupied by a single attached dwelling and 2 sheds. The lands to be retained are vacant. The purpose of the severance is to retain a parcel of the vacant land to be developed through a draft plan of subdivision. The lands currently today are designated urban residential and zoned hamlet residential. So this subject application today is proceeding 2 concurrent applications, so that a zoning bylaw amendment and a draft plan of subdivision. The draft plan of subdivision is to create 13 lots in the form of single detached dwelling units. And the zoning bylaw amendment is proposing to amend the existing agricultural zone to the hamlet residential zone with a site-specific provision to permit a reduced lot area of 1,950 square meters, wherein the minimum is 4,000 square meters. So condition number 4 of the severance will be that a declaration regarding the zoning bylaw amendment, 7PL 2022-349, has been passed and the appeal period has been completed by Norfolk County. So that ensures that the lot we're creating meets the zoning bylaw today, in the future, sorry. Comment received by the zoning administrator requested some more information for the existing sheds on the separate lots, rear lot line and dimensions. So conditions 2 and 3 have been added to ensure planning staff are meeting those official plan requirements regarding severances meeting zoning bylaw requirements. As the lands are within the MTO's jurisdiction, they submitted a comment included as attachment 2 with no objections to the proposal to sever. With that said, the staff find the proposal meets the intent and purpose of the PPS official plan and zoning bylaw and recommend approval subject to the attached conditions. Thank you. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Is there an agent or applicant either present or online?
Yeah, it's Mike Guer here from Stubbies. Everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have no comments. Just appreciate all the work the staff has done here and just here to answer any questions if there may be.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anything from the committee? Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this application, present or online? Hearing none. What are the committee's wishes? Lisa moves approval.
Rudy seconds.
Thank you, Rudy. So file number BNPL 2022-305, the name of Mike Gior. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot in the urban area and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, and no public input was received, and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Lisa?
Yes.
And Linda?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
Myself is carried. And that's approved. Under BNPL 2022-334, the name of Manfred and Susan Harmon. And the planner can give a report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to sever a parcel having an approximate frontage of 47 meters, a width of 47 meters, depth of 93 meters, an area of 4,065 square meters or an acre, and retain a parcel having an area of 198 acres or 80 hectares. As the severance of the dwelling made surplus for farm amalgamation. The subject lands are located in the township of Putin. Sorry, it's embarrassing. Fire pit. The lands we retained are occupied by a barn, which is proposed to be removed. For the removal of the barn, the building department has added conditions 7 and 7B. The lands are designated and zoned agricultural, hazard land, and potentially significant wetland. As a portion of this land is regulated by the LPRCA, their comment noting no objection to the concept of the proposals and included as attachment 2. A site visit by staff determined there appears to be water, gas, and electricity lines, a propane tank, and satellite dish located on the eastern edge of the driveway that occupies the lands to be retained. The understanding of staff that the water and electricity services on the driveway will be disconnected and the propane tank and gas line will be relocated. So condition 3 has been added by planning staff to reflect the proposed disconnection of water and electricity lines and the movement of the propane tank, gas line, and satellite dish on the lands to be retained. The intent of the condition is to ensure any future construction or maintenance of the infrastructure remains with the parcel to be severed. And I think I see a note from Mary, you might have to talk through those conditions 3 and 4. A site visit by staff determined as the accessory structure, which looks to be a cabana or pavilion, the lands to be severed, which were not noted on the application. So conditions conditions 5 and 6 were added to reflect that consideration. However, the agent and property owner worked to fulfill this condition in advance of the meeting, so they can be removed today from the decision. With that said, planning staff reviewed the application and meets the intent of the policies of the PPS official plan and zoning bylaw as they pertain to consent to sever, and recommending approval of this application subject to the attached conditions. Questions?
Okay. Is there an applicant you're representing?
Yes.
Is the applicant here too? Just you?
Just myself.
Okay. Anything from the committee to the planner? Anything to add, Mary?
The location of the cabana or gazebo was added by the surveying company. So that's basically we moved that is because of that. And then I did measurements so that we had the right distances to know that there's no,
I'm sorry, can you just speak up a little bit?
yeah, there's no zoning, being contravening the provisions of zoning because the distances are okay.
Okay,
All right, I'm sorry, it was last minute, we were so busy with the first 5 in this meeting that we didn't look too much at this one, and I thought when I just looked over it, that it looked like 2 of those conditions would be almost the same, it's just the articles in them have been listed differently, but it's still all the same points. That's why I thought maybe it's an duplication.
Oh, I see, yeah, so, okay, so condition 3 is confirmation of the existing C satellite dish is a duplication, so that's correct. Okay. Let's review.
okay, well, while you're doing that, any questions from the committee?
No.
We're just reviewing some revised conditions, and we'll get back on that. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak to this application, in person or online? No? Okay. Just give Hannah a second here to go over that.
Actually, was a beer.
So we can just summarize it a bit here and.
So condition 3 requires that the satellite dish is removed from the retained or relocated. The gas line and propane tank are removed or relocated and separate.
Oh.
Yeah. And then this is the disconnection of the electricity and water lines.
Right.
Yes.
And through the chair, we agreed to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did Linda and Rudy, did you get that? The conditions are somewhat revised about the removal of the satellite dish, the water lines, and the propane tank will be removed or relocated. And everyone's in agreement.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Good. Okay. So there's no one that wishes to speak to this application, right? What are the wishes of the committee?
Rudy moves approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rudy.
I'll second.
Thanks, Linda. So file number BNPL 2022-334, the name of Manfred and Susan Herman. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, compliance with the zoning bylaw, with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot within the agricultural area, and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, and no public input was received, and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. And I guess I'll just make a note in here as conditions have been amended. Yes.
Thanks, Mary. Did you want that one back?
So, moved by Rudy, seconded by Linda. All those in favor, Lisa?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Myself, and that is carried. Approved. And there you go. And last but not least, file number BNPL 2022-240 in the name of David and Sherry Smith. And the planner can give the report, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, an application has been received to sever a parcel having approximately a frontage of 22 meters, a width of 50 meters, a depth of 100 meters, and an area of 5,300 square meters. And retain a parcel having an area of 54 hectares as the creation of a lot within the hamlet of Port Reitz. and secured an easement with a frontage of approximately 10 meters and a regular width of 10 meters and a regular depth 24 meters and an area of 169 square meters for the purpose of driveway access for the farming operation on the retained parcel. So the lands to be severed are occupied by a single attached dwelling. The lands to be retained are an irregularly shaped agricultural parcel. They're occupied by greenhouses, agricultural outbuildings, a barn, a house, and a wind turbine. So this application was heard at the October 19th, 2022 community adjustment meeting. It was deferred in order to provide staff and the applicant additional time to discuss a condition proposed by planning staff that would require the entrance shared between the lands severed and retained be disconnected, and the GIS condition as well. So the application has since been amended to include an easement. So in the report, you'll notice some conditions and comments from the GIS department regarding that civic address and the development engineering department regarding an entrance. So they're there for the record, but they're removed from the list of conditions, which has been addressed through the easement. Due to the unknown distance between the agricultural buildings on the retained and the dwelling on the severed, and frontage on the retained lands, the zoning administrator is requesting information to ensure that the lot retained is in compliance with the zoning bylaw. So conditions 2 and 3 have been added to reflect this. The subject lands are designated hamlet, agricultural, and hazard land. They're also zoned hamlet, residential, agricultural, and hazard land with 2 site-specific special provisions. So for the lands to be severed, special provision 14.984 permits a smaller lot area than what's currently permitted as of right to the zoning bylaw. And for the entire subject lands, there's provision 14.31, which allows a second single-family dwelling to be constructed on a farm located in part of lots 3 and 4, broken from concession to the city of Nanticoke Woodhouse. And the original bylaw has been attached with the report for review. So in terms of context, this site-specific provision, 14.31, would not be able to be removed prior to the severance when this land was rezoned around 2018, as it would make the existing single detached home non-compliant with the current zoning bylaw, specifically provision 3.26, which only permits 1 dwelling per lot, with the exception of ADUs. So this severance today will have the effect of separating 2 dwellings into 2 lots. It's the position of staff that the intent of the bylaw, the original bylaw from around 1970, permitting 2 dwellings, has been fulfilled. So planning staff has added a condition requiring that this be removed to ensure no future dwellings are built and or severed. It's the opinion of staff, this would have the effect of being in conformity with the intent of the original zoning bylaw, being in conformity with provision 3.26 of the zoning bylaw. For the portions of the lands we retained which are designated hamlet, it would theoretically eliminate the possibility of future homes and severances occurring without a draft plan of subdivision. So draft plans of subdivision are the preferred method of consent when in the county's interest to avoid piecemeal development. For portions of the lands to be retained that are designated agricultural, it eliminates the possibility of homes to be built and severed off as surplus farm dwellings. So my hope for the committee in making their decision, they understand the following. So the parcel, to my understanding, has experienced a total of 2 severances, with this being the 3rd. That without the condition being removed, there are opportunities for future severances in lands designated agricultural. So hypothetically, if a severance did occur and a similar condition proposed today was not added to those severances, the same permissions and abilities persist. Noting this assumes the PPS and official plan is the same. So it risks the land continues to be fragmented through surplus farm severance dwelling policies. I do understand the agent has discussed with the owner some history and kind of discussing that they may set a precedence. Just keeping in mind that these previous severances and the respective conditions of the severances occurred at times when the provincial policy statement was different. So it was less restrictive regarding severances in prime agricultural areas, and so we use what we have in policy today. That's how we evaluate it. And beyond that, the current permissions in the zoning bylaw allow for garden suites and accessory residential dwelling units without the special provision as it is today. With all that said, it is the opinion of staff that by removing the special provision, the intent of the PPS official plan and zoning bylaw today is met, and do recommend the application for approval subject to the attached conditions. Thank you for your time. I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. There's an applicant or an agent present. Mike, okay, thanks, Mike. Does the committee have anything for the planner? Linda looks like she's about to ask a question, I can tell.
Well, I'm gonna have some comments for sure and some questions, but I'll go ahead and start. So the condition, just for planning staff, the condition about removing the special provision which permits the second detached dwelling, was that on the report when it came to us back in October?
Yes.
Okay, so that's nothing new then. Okay, just my comment with regards to that, I'm totally in favor of that. I think you're correct. When that special provision was added, it has been fulfilled. It's my understanding the second dwelling is now what's going to be severed, or they're requesting to be severed. And if that condition is not removed, there's nothing to stop them from building another second dwelling and then down the road applying for a severance on it. So it could go on and on and on if it's not removed. So I'm totally in favor of that. And then we did receive some correspondence from, I guess, the planning consultant, and it talked about the cost to the owners of doing a zoning bylaw amendment to remove that special provision. And I know when we do like surplus farm dwelling severances, it's sort of an automatic zoning application. And I'm wondering if there's a simplified process to save the owners some cost in having that removed. Is there anything that can be done that way?
Thank you. Through the chair, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to it offhand, but if there was a way to ensure that the special provision is removed on the lands to be severed and retained at a reduced cost to the applicant, I would be very happy to explore that.
Okay,
because a little bit of research, I guess, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Did you hear that, Linda? A little bit of research, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, even if it's, I'm assuming it would be because planning is imposing the condition, it would be a relatively simple application that wouldn't require not that I'm trying to put consultants out of work, but it wouldn't require a justification report or any lengthy kind of process. It would be fairly simple and straightforward. Is that correct?
Yes, through the chair, that is correct. I might be so bold as to say it would be worth exploring if it could be approved through delegated approval, which is a new process that should be faster for any potential applicant.
Okay, so that issue in terms of the owners would be looked into to try and save them some costs for that. That was one of the things that I was hoping you would say. Anyway, that's my comments.
Okay, Rudy, anything?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, good. The agent or the applicant have anything to add?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the efforts of staff on this and getting us to explain. We've come up with a small difference of opinion, which staff have already mentioned to you. I think this is a compromise position, which will help to address the members' concern as well. And if I can ask for the staff report to come up, specifically the last two, the conditions, actually there's two maps you produced at the end of it, at the end of the staff report. I share staff's opinion on future development potential on the property. I don't think it's appropriate to do too much they've had a couple severances. I share the concern on agricultural lands for that, but I think there is a solution that's viable here. So what I'm proposing, which I did talk to staff, and we again have a bit of a difference there, which is fine. Hannah, are you able to bring up your staff report? Is that possible?
So I'm not sharing my screen, but.
I can do it verbally. This property, this section of the proposed property is the focus currently. There was concern expressed by staff at the October meeting for future development. I don't think there's enough land in this area to provide many more, more than one severance. That's not what I think. Leaving this property, this section of the property where it is fine. If you look on the staff report and you look at, there's two maps, one showing these lands and one showing lands to the north, which is, I want you to focus on Hamlet residential lands, so the lands within Port Ryerson. Can everyone see that? I'm sorry, I didn't bring it along with me. I apologize for that.
Just looking at the same mapping.
What I'm trying to get to, committee, is in discussion with my clients.
There's no frontage.
There is actually. We can do it.
Okay.
This one?
Oh.
That one there?
Sure, that'll work. If you can zoom in on the left-hand side of the northern end, north of the subject lands. What I'm trying to get to, committee, is rather than removing 1431, the site specific, from the entire property, I would propose we reduce it in size to allow for one house in sometime in the future to be built in that location. They're within the Hamlet lands, not on the agricultural lands, and that would allow for my clients sent you a letter, or they put their content into the letter that you received, and they see a need in the future for farm sustainability purposes, farm succession, to have a house available in the future. What I'm suggesting and proposing is removing 1431 from the entire property and putting it into a little, I'll call it a polygon or a blob, if you will. If you see where it says Duke Street closed on the drawing, the west side of the drawing, and you see just north of that, there's actually an access road. I'm saying just south of that. Now, Hannah, is that, I can't see that. Is that a wind turbine right there?
Sorry, not following where and when you.
I'm sorry.
No, the wind turbine is where
Right. So for the community members that are here, I'll just try to focus in. I'm saying remove 1431 from the property and leave it just in this section above the word closed on Duke Street, just in that area, to allow a house at some point to be put into the Hamlet lands alone and access along the right of way that would be on the D of Port Ryerson Road. There's a little road that comes in there which accesses the wind turbine.
That's on Mom's property you're talking about.
I'm sorry?
That's Mom's property you're talking about.
I'm sorry, am I misunderstanding the whole thing then?
Yep.
Okay, my apologies, I've been corrected.
So just let, we'll get your chance. So just finish up, Michael, and carry on.
What I'm trying to get to, committee, here is I fully agree with staff's comments about removing the potential for future severances in agricultural land. That to me is a definite. What I'm trying to do here is to allow my clients at some point in the future for farm succession purposes to have a second dwelling. The original intent, as committee has said, of this bylaw was to allow a house to be built, which is being built and is now being proposed to be severed. My clients' needs have changed. They're getting older and they're looking at farm succession. They'd like to be on the farm. They'd like to do one more lot ultimately to allow the house to allow the farm to continue being farmed. That's what I'm trying to get to. And if there, and so keeping 1431 within Hamlet lands, does that work or does that not work?
No, that's not what we're looking for.
Okay, I apologize.
What we're looking for is the ability to build a house on the agricultural land.
Right.
Because the next generation is not gonna farm our greenhouses. So, can I address the chair, please?
Absolutely.
The Hamlet lands are going here, across the corner of our existing greenhouses.
So for the members that aren't present, the applicant is indicating, if you pull up the aerial map in the report, Rudy and Linda, and you'll see the greenhouse with the, just below the parallels pointing at the subject lands. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, we have no more available lands to build anything in the Hamlet lands for ours. So the potential to build any residential housing to sell here and sell in our own property in Fort Ryerson is extinct.
Okay.
There's no reason and no desire for Sherry and I to build any more houses in Hamlet and Fort Ryerson.
Okay.
We have none.
Okay.
The only reason we used that 1431 was because my son needed a house and we didn't have time to sever that property so he could build a house. So we used it so he could build. Now, the reason we want to maintain it is because the next generation is coming along and we need to move away from the hamlet, because if we were to build any other buildings and it happened to involve livestock, we need setbacks.
Right.
And setbacks, this is a bush lot, this is water, these are bush lots. We can't establish new livestock operations or anything else close to the hamlet because of existing regulations. And according to the regulations, if we lose 1431, bunkhouses have to be built close to existing houses that we live in today. A bunkhouse isn't big enough to have my grandchildren raise a family in without going to have a variance or whatever that it takes to get a bunkhouse built farther away, closer to a barn, or a bigger house than a certain size, bigger than the house that we're living in, or any of that stuff. We already have a 1431 that we can build a house right beside our barn, anywhere on this property that we own. We're not going to sever any more property beside the greenhouses because all our services come in here, which is mentioned in the letter we sent to the committee.
Right.
Our gas, our hydro, our water comes across Brooks property. All our services come in there. So we're not going to sever any more property here. That's where our services come in. But we need to have the ability to build a new operation farther back when our grandchildren come along. We're already planning an expansion because our greenhouse are winding down because it's not practical in these old buildings to carry on anymore. So the plan is to build at least in this bush lot. Sorry.
That was my.
Or farther back, depending on which operation we choose to build.
Okay.
But we can't be doing it anymore until we know for sure
Where you're at.
where we're at. And this has been delayed 2 years already until Daniel gets his finances together with his house on the ground and his own mortgage and all that.
Okay.
So having the knowledge that we can know exactly what we can do, where we can do it, dealing with farm credit is very important going forward. And 1431 is very important to us for those reasons. And the That's all, that really summarizes it in a nutshell right there. There's no more opportunity. It's not a desire to build and sever, build and sever.
Okay.
It's not that. And Daniel is a son. He's planning on helping me. He's gonna retire from Stelco within the next 8 years. He's helping me in the greenhouse right now. He'll be helping with the next operation. His kids are coming along. And we need the opportunity to be out of the house. My mother lives in this section right here, right now, in that house right there. So it's a family farm. It has been since 1900.
Yeah. Okay. Just a second, and then I'll get to you.
Okay.
I want to apologize to my clients and to the committee for misunderstanding this.
Okay.
And my clients have expressed this to me before. I didn't properly understand it. I was looking for a planning solution and trying to work with 1431 in the best possible way. The spot zoning, we can reduce the 1431 within the lands to bring it down, reduce the potential. But removing it from the agricultural lands, as my clients have said, is not an option.
Can I, excuse me, can
I just wanted to ask one question. Well, maybe I'll ask my question later. Go, you finish up and then we'll get to the committee.
When my dad took this piece off here, if you go back in history, this is history again, but the hamlet boundary was back as far as this bush in 1979. And when Mom and Dad took this severance, we have correspondence that they redrew the hamlet boundary lines. And Dad suggested that they redraw them to that line there, which is, if you'll notice, it's square to that street.
I see.
Because he was on the committee of adjustment for years too. And at that time, they thought they might go ahead and develop that. But I talked them out of it because we didn't want houses encroaching on the farm. And I could afford from revenue from the farm to support them through the years of their retirement. And so that's when the hamlet was reduced from that line back there up to there, and now it's drawn there. We have no desire to develop.
Okay, we got that. Linda?
Okay, so my first question is, who lives, there's a house on the lands to be retained. Who lives there?
We do.
We do.
Okay, and the house that's going to be severed, who lives in that house?
Our son.
Our son.
And his family.
And his family. And he helps us on the farm as well as working off the farm.
Okay.
He would like to have the house severed so he can have his own mortgage and
right.
they can financially be on their own. Independent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So
okay, go ahead, Linda.
I'm just gonna make my comments. So I'm able to support the severance, but I am not supporting the removal of the condition that the 14.31 special provision. If I support the severance, I will support it with that condition that special provision be removed.
Okay. Rudy, anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would agree with Linda's comments there. I can support it under the same terms as Linda stated.
Okay. I have a question going back to October's meeting where there was a discussion about farm equipment moving in and out, and that's what kind of brought us to this today in the deferral, because somebody had said something about difficulty in moving farm equipment. Right?
Yeah, that was.
So has that issue been addressed?
Yes.
With this proposal?
With the easement.
With the easement. And we're all good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that issue's off the table. Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing that's on right now is the removal of 1431, which we don't really want to give up because we feel that it's important for the future of the sustainability of our farm.
I understand that. So you're in agreement with our committee members that,
No, they want to take it off. We would like to keep it on.
well, I thought Linda mentioned, Linda, did you say you wanted it removed or you want to maintain it?
Yeah, I want the special provision removed from the remaining land, so they can't build another second house. I feel like that the intent of that special provision has been met. I'm agreeing with planning staff. So their condition that says that it has to be removed, I agree with that. Does that make sense, Alan?
Yeah.
And that's the only way I'm supporting the severance, is if that condition is removed from the remaining farmland.
Okay.
Could I just add?
Sure.
One more thing? The lot that Daniel is proposing, that we're proposing to sever, has always been Hamlet residential. So we didn't need 1431 in order for him to be able to build a house on that lot. It's already in the Hamlet. And so,
So sorry, is it in the Hamlet now or it was in the Hamlet
always
back in 1970?
in 1979.
79.
It was always in the Hamlet.
Okay,
It's
So,
always been in the Hamlet.
okay.
so he could have severed that lot because it was in the Hamlet at any time, even if we didn't have 1431.
Okay.
So what you're saying is 1431 is not being satisfied at this point, even with the severance, it's still there. And the purpose is still in place.
And I would also, yes, and I would also like to point out that there isn't anywhere in that 1997 zoning amendment that gave us 1431 that says that we could only do it one time. It says that we can do it on any part of the farm. I have the map here that says it talks about lot 3 and 4, and lot 3 and 4 is our entire farm. It's not just one area of the farm. It gives us permission to have a second dwelling anywhere on the farm. So that's why we feel that it's so important for sustainability of the farm and going forward with our succession planning, is so that if our grandchildren would like to have some kind of other farming operation other than the greenhouse, which is winding down.
Okay.
That they would be able to have another, and if they chose animals or market gardening or whatever, they're going to need barns and they're going to need a house. And we don't want to build anything close to the village.
Right.
We would like
But
to
those
be
would all be
further
separate
away.
applications in the future. Anyway.
Yes, yes.
So let me, Lisa?
Through the chair, this question is for the planning department. So if the severance were to go through for, was it 1431, is that correct? Is that the address on it? Or
No,
was it special
it's
provision?
a condition.
Okay, so if that were to be severed, but that provision that prevents them from severing anything else, can they not still build a secondary accessory dwelling unit on said property that is remaining? So they do still have the ability to have 2 dwellings on that, it just isn't a separate property, and then kind of ties everything in so that they can't continue to sever indefinitely, so to say. If that makes sense.
I might be tired. Okay, so if I understand you correctly, you're asking if the severance went through and the conditions as proposed were unchanged, what would that mean for severing in the future?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
So my question is, if that severance went through, we have, I think we can all probably agree, maybe I'm wrong, for committee members. I don't feel overly comfortable saying, okay, you can kind of have a free for all on severances, and that's not meant to be offensive in any way, shape, or form. But if that were to be severed, they still could go ahead and build an additional dwelling on that farm, because you can have a secondary accessory dwelling unit as it is because of what they've got already.
Yeah,
on that.
so if the consent was approved and the conditions as proposed were approved with that consent, so 14.31 was removed for the entire subject property, an ADU could still be built as of right. Also, bunkhouses could be built as of right. And I just want to clarify that those are two different uses. So bunkhouses, there aren't specific provisions in the agricultural zone. They're tend to be guided through the health unit and the building department, whereas ADUs, was like our one that we talked about today. So they're considered secondary dwellings. There are zoning provisions that pertain to them. So there are some restrictions as far as bunkhouses in their own way. Keeping in mind that the province has recently expanded permissions for ADUs. So before you could have one ADU, now you can have two. So a total of 3 dwelling units on one property as of right today. And as a result of the severance, that wouldn't be changing. I hope that's
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Just let me see, anything from Linda? Ready?
Yeah, well, I'll just comment. So the ADU or accessory dwelling unit, they're not allowed to be severed. So if you build one, you can't sever it.
Right.
With the leaving 14.31, that's not the same. It's giving you a second residential dwelling. And I know what your intent is, but 15 years from now or 25 years from now, if you sell the farm, the next owner might decide to sever it. So it's, you know, it's not just all about today. It's protecting the land for the future. So my position hasn't changed.
Okay. Sir?
Just to respond to Lisa's, we haven't asked any more severances than anybody living beside Cortland or whatever. The severance where Daniel's house is right now is inside the hamlet of Port Ryerson. And when we went in to ask if we could sever where Daniel's house is, they said to us that we had to tear down the greenhouse and put a turnaround spot in there. And so, or we had to do this, or we had to do that, or we had to put planned subdivision on. And he needed the house because he had a family on the way. So there was a whole bunch of problems that went with that. So
I don't think that it changes anything. We don't have any frontage or anything else in the hamlet that we can sever, and we're not. If someone wanted to divide the farm in half, that agriculturally would be impossible because we don't want to take agricultural land with production.
Right.
So the other option is going to be if you want to take it away from us now, and we want to build a second set of buildings back on the farm. Our house, the way it sits right now, is inside the hamlet of Port Ryerson. And the option will be that we'll be looking for a severance to sever our house and where the greenhouse is again.
Okay.
And we'll be in the hamlet again. And then we'll be looking to build a house back farther.
Okay.
We're trying to prevent that. I'm just saying that those are some of the options that we have looking forward.
Okay.
And so we're trying to prevent severing of the land and keep everything together as a farm.
Okay, let me just continue here for a minute. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak to this application, either online or in person? So hearing none, I think we've heard all the discussion on both sides. Mike, I'll let you have just another minute.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
We have a bit of a time limit that I really haven't enforced, but anyway, go ahead.
I appreciate that. I just want to talk to the ADU matter that staff and I have talked about previously. And it is, we did an analysis of it, Mitchell did an analysis, and we found it restrictive to my client's future desire for a house on the property. Normally we supported the Planning Act, just thrown a bit of a wrench in it with the 3 ADUs that staff mentioned earlier. And it doesn't satisfy my client's future farm succession needs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else of the committee? What are the wishes of the committee then?
I'll recommend approval with the conditions as listed.
Okay. So Linda moves approval. Can I get a seconder?
Rudy will second that.
Okay, Rudy. So file number BNPL 2022240, the application in the name of David and Cher Smith. The application is consistent with provincial policy statement, complies with the policies of the Norfolk County official plan regarding the creation of a lot within the Hamlet area and meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, that no public input was received and therefore has not been considered as part of this application. All those in favor, Linda?
Yes.
And Rudy?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
And myself, and that is approved. Okay. Thank you.
I just have some things to say.
Yeah, just,
Once everybody leaves.
just go. Thanks, later, committee, and we'll be, back at you in a second.
What gave you? Yeah. No, no. I think she wasn't. Okay.
Thanks for everybody for coming.
I was thinking. We're late now. Okay, so we'll see.
That's right. That was it. Thanks, guys. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your time.
Okay, committee, we have some other business from.
We can adjourn the meeting and then talk about other business, or do you want?
Okay, well,
You want to keep it in the minutes?
Doesn't matter.
So we'll keep it in the minutes, it doesn't
Okay.
matter. I just wanted to let everybody know that the terms of reference is going to council for approval next week. They have put their recommendations in for new committee adjustment members. It was a report going forward. It hasn't been approved 100% yet, so I'm waiting for that to come out. So once we know, I'm sure clerks are going to email you their final decisions. So if you have any questions, like I said, this is my last meeting. I'm here to answer any questions. So forward them on to me and I'll get them to whoever they need to go to. But if there's anything anybody needs, just let me know. It's my last meeting going forward. February's meeting is canceled. We had to make that decision, lack of staff to review and deem completed reports. So we as a team decided February will be a canceled meeting. So going forward, March will be the first meeting with the new committee. So we're going to do like a little probably planning 101 with the new committee coming forward. We're trying to do it before I leave, before the 3rd of February. So I will let everybody know if we're going to do like a little one-on-one meet and greet and that kind of thing. So I'll be reaching out then.
So as far as I know, the 4 of us are returning, and there's two new members to be appointed. So that's what I heard through the grapevine.
That's what it is right now. I guess that was just a recommendation, but the report hasn't been approved by council yet. So you guys will find out probably next week when it goes to council, right, Mama? I think it's the 20th, well, not till the 23rd.
Anyway, is that?
Yeah, I think that's everything I have to say. So good luck going forward with everybody, but
Well, thank
like
you.
any questions, I'm still in the county, so reach out to me.
Thank you for your service, and we will be hunting you down. For sure. And so can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Linda, and Rudy will second that, I guess.
I will.
Unless you guys have anything else to add?
I just want to say, I know this is completely off topic. Linda, you understood that I did agree with what you were saying, right? We were on the exact same page?
Yeah.
Okay. You were just saying it in a different way, so I was a bit unsure. On that note, let's go home. What time is it?
Are we still,
On the done.
Are we still being recorded or are we off now?
No, you're being recorded.
We're still being
Hang on a
recorded?
second.
Well, I have to mute, I don't know how to
Oh, okay.
record it, so.
Anyway, go ahead, Rudy, just finish it up.
Are we being recorded or not?
Yeah, we are.
If there's
Okay.
anything you want to say, you can just reach out, email or whatever, if there's something you need to talk about offline, Rudy.
Well, I mean, I had a comment on terms of the last case, but I won't say it if it's still online.
Yeah, just forward out an email to Hannah and then maybe we can circulate your comments. Okay?
Okay,
Okay,
Okay, good night, everybody.
good night.
good night.